What's the worst place you have laughed uncontrollably? This one time at a funeral, my cousins and I saw an older gentleman approach the casket. It was a open casket, and he started talking. No big deal, but what he said killed us. It was something like, "Hey Jude. I'd ask how you're doing, but you're dead." My boss gave a talk to a squad of disabled athletes in wheelchairs, and not only did he say that it is important to put your best foot forward, but he also said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." I had to leave the room. Edit. These guys in the wheelchairs were the most inspirational, superhuman, determined people I have ever met in my life, and I think everyone already knew that. Well, it wasn't uncontrollable, but there were a lot of laughs at my mom's funeral. My grandmother, who was 96 at the time and having a bit of dementia, said out loud, "Oh, you shut your mouth," when the priest started his prayers. It actually lightened up a grim room. They started playing the Hallelujah song at school. My friend asked, "Isn't this the song from Shrek?" In a staff meeting, when they told us the store was closing and we would all be losing our jobs. It was the first mandatory full staff meeting in the 2 years I had been there. Usually the warehouse area where I worked would do those things separately. I was joking in the carpool to work that we were all getting laid off in one go to save time, and when we get there the big boss has tissue boxes lining the meeting table. I knew I was right and immediately starting giggling like an idiot. I kept it together, kinda, until they announced the layoffs, and then I lost it. Other people were in tears for losing their jobs, but the whole thing was weirdly hilarious to me. At my mother's baptism. My mother was raised Catholic, but grew away from the church for various reasons over the years, but she became very active at a local Baptist church and decided to officially convert. They held a huge ceremony during the Sunday morning service, and the whole family showed up to support her. Well, there is always music and singing, and being a fairly large church, they had a band with a multitude of instruments. There was this one ducking guy, and his job was to play the chimes. You know, the different ones hanging on strings all in a row? Well, let me tell you, this guy loved to play the ducking chimes. It was his only job. He did it with such flourish. He would shove his hand into the air before swooping into the hanging bars of metal. Did you know that he was also able to incorporate chimes into multiple points of all the songs played? Well, he did. Chimes all day. The first time it happened, my husband and I locked eyes in the pew. That was it, we ducking lost it. And he kept doing it. Song after song. We could not get control of ourselves. My father, sitting behind us, was furious. At my roommate's father's funeral. Extremely depressing because his father took his own life. However, there was an old fella in attendance who let out the slowest, clappiest fart of all time. I couldn't help myself. Gluteus Jiggle Fest. In a haunted horror maze. The owners and actors clearly put a lot of time and effort into making it look and feel incredible. But on the first jump scare my adrenaline spiked, and I couldn't control the constant laughter that followed me the rest of the way. Absolutely shattered the tension for everyone. My wedding vows. Husband got through his, then hit a giggle loop that had me struggling to get through mine. To the point where I was a little late on a few responses and my dad asked mom, "Is she crying?" No. No. She's laughing. I was in the middle of a lecture at school and I was reading Reddit on my phone under my desk. I came across a post that went something like, "What would be the scariest conspiracy if it were true?" Lost it at Jfka's head just did that. Edit. The comment I am talking about. Went to a friendless church when I was 20, and at one part of the service people started standing up sharing their struggles. Lots of tears, really somber mood. Lady in front of me stands up and shares ugly crying. Snorting, sniffling, voice cracking and squeaking, and it struck me as funny. I started giggling, so I bent over in the pew to make it look like I was crying. My redneck friend, sitting beside me, started patting my back and rubbing my shoulders comfortingly, which made it even funnier, and I started belly laughing, but all bent over, covering my face. It looked like I was absolutely falling apart. And trying to hold it in, I started to make my own weird gasping, snorting sounds. My friend never knew until years later, when I was telling the story at a party. When the small turboprop plane hit really bad turbulence and dropped a bit. Ladies screamed. Children cried. I was laughing hysterically. Wife was unimpressed. Which of course made the laughing worse. 10/10. I was interviewing a woman for a part-time job in our office when I realized that if you dipped her in blue paint, she would be the spitting image of Nanny Smurf. I started to crack up and realized I was going to lose it in front of her, so I told her I was having an allergy attack. I ran to the bathroom and laughed my head off, went back and finished the interview. The toilet. Standing while taking a piss. Remembered something hilarious. Piss everywhere. My dad's funeral. It started with the honor guard got lost between the funeral home and cemetery, and we saw them turn into the cemetery on two wheels right before the hearse got there. It grew when the shells from the 21 gun salutes fell out of the flag when they handed it to my mom. Then we got stranded in the cemetery because the limo wouldn't start after the service and almost everyone else was gone. We spent 10 to 15 minutes just laughing in the cemetery. We all figured that dad couldn't have planned it better. Heathrow Airport sometime in the 90s. There was a 1-minute silence for Princess Diana. My girlfriend burst into uncomfortable laughter. It was so infectious that I ended up in fits of laughter. I still feel bad. Back of an 8th grade classroom during a presentation. I'm bullhitting with my friend because I'm kind of a tick. Meanwhile, our student presenter has a small but noticeable speech impediment. Every couple of words, he has to pause and catch his breath mid-word. Thank you. While not paying attention to the presentation, my friend made me laugh, which happened to coincide perfectly with one of the pauses. I immediately feel an entire classroom of eyes on me as I try to look innocent and point at my friend as the object of laughter. But it was too late. No way to talk yourself out of that mess. We had an assembly in high school, aged 17 or so, about adult things, you know, all that good stuff. There's about 200 people in the room and the women presenting the PowerPoint, not a teacher, she'd come from somewhere else, puts a number on the board. Presenter, what do you think this number is? My friend whispers to me, number of people that have died a year. Presenter, number of abortions a year. My friend still whispering, well, I was half right. I laugh at him, slightly too loud, but not loud enough so everyone hears me. Presenter staring right at me, I don't find abortion very funny. And everyone looked at me like the human filth that I was. Edit, spelling. Edit 2, thanks for the silver. This is my first Reddit award. Gal in my small town was murdered. News film cruise filmed us arriving. I laughed because I was nervous. They didn't broadcast that clip. Thankfully. After receiving my final test of the year and it all seemed like some ducking exorcism. Next to a dead body. Elderly lady had fallen out of bed, lit a cigarette and promptly died. She had such a pissed off look on her face, like great, fell out of bed, cannot get up and what is this? A heart attack? Well, why the duck not? Oh, man. I used to work in a call center, and on each call I had to inquire whether the customer had cavity wall and loft insulation already. On one call I accidentally asked somebody if they'd had their caft and lovety woofed, immediately bursting into an insane fit of giggles. Thankfully the person on the other end of the phone saw the funny side. Honestly, just typing that out now I'm having to suppress the giggles. I ended the call and had to take a break to let all of the giggles out and compose myself. Eventually I calmed down enough to make another phone call, and for whatever reason, as soon as the next person answered the phone I burst back into giggles. The customer was new at impressed. I explained Caft and Lovety woofed and apologized to the guy, but he told me how unprofessional it was and that it made my company look bad etc etc. I apologized profusely but still couldn't really stop giggling. He hung up shortly after that. And TBH, duck that guy, because Caft and Lovety woofed is hilarious. You've been visited by the safety doggo. Like this video and subscribe. You've been visited by the safety doggo. Like this video and subscribe. You've been visited by the safety doggo. Like this video and subscribe.